Few things are more annoying than starting work on a crochet pattern only to realise that it is basically impossible. Like, it can't be done. There is some kind of fundamental mistake with it, or there is just a decent part of the instructions that is missing entirely. The kit list might be incomplete, or maybe there's just not enough information about the yarn. It's annoying and a serious waste of your time. So in order to avoid that super frustrating situation in future, today I want to share with you a handful of red flags for crochet patterns. Knowing these signs will save you time, frustration, and most importantly, yarn. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Vague or missing yarn weight information.
The pattern should give you the yarn weight, as in the thickness, the fibre, as in cotton, acrylic, wool, etc., the colour.
They also need to tell you how much of the stuff they've used. Did they use 1 skein? Did they use 11? Who can tell if they don't tell you? No hook size specified. So this, I would say, is a red flag, but it's not an unovercomable red flag if you know exactly which yarn they used, because normally the yarn will tell you on the packet which hook size needs to go with it. However, if they've got vague yarn information and then no hook size, who can tell? This is particularly relevant if you're making something that needs to be fitted to size, like a garment. Slightly less relevant for amigurumi, but still annoying. Abbreviated stitch names without a key. Abbreviations, they're great. We all use them, particularly in the slightly more advanced patterns. But it is so important to have at the beginning of your pattern just a tiny little key that tells you what each of those abbreviations mean. And there is no standardized crochet pattern. That means that some of us will write increase, some of us will write 2SC, some of us will write SC2. There's a lot of ways of doing it. You need to be sure which way the pattern you're using intends you to use the term. A lack of a key is a warning that you might find the instructions unclear, but also just a lack of attention from the crochet designer, which is in itself a bit of a red flag. Very low prices for very complicated patterns. There's a caveat here. So I give a lot of my crochet patterns away for free, and there is no difference in complexity in terms of my most complicated patterns, whether I charge for them or not, compared to my most simple ones. To be completely honest, for me, it's just a case of whether I've made a PDF for them yet, which mostly I haven't. However, again, with things like garments, these are structurally such a different thing, and you will almost always find that the more complicated patterns have a bit more of a price tag attached to reflect the time that went into putting them together, particularly when they've got different sizings. Speaking of which, one size fits all without measurements. That's quite long for a title, isn't it? But stick with me. There are things like Oodies. I own a lot of Oodies. They're great, that say one size fits all, and I can imagine that that is probably pretty much true. They're nice and roomy and cozy. However, for clothing, as a tall woman, one size fits all clothes very rarely fit me. If something says one size fits all, I want to know what size that actually is. What are the measurements of the finished product that you're saying is going to fit everybody? Because Oodies aside, one size fits all, that's a myth. Right? A lack of photos. This is a huge one. So personally, when I'm putting together a new crochet pattern design, I take the most phenomenal number of photos of every step of the way, and then it's a bit of a job to narrow them down to get the right ones into the pattern. When I pick up a pattern and it only has a picture at the start of the finished product and no pictures throughout the rest of it, that's a bit of a red flag for a few reasons. Firstly, I cannot make this video without ranting just for a second about AI. It's everywhere. It does my head in. It gives unrealistic expectations, quite aside from the ethical issues with the fact that AI steals tiny bits of everyone's pictures and smooshes them together in a clever way. Most AI images of crochet patterns are literally impossible to make. So many AI patterns have one picture at the top and then no other pictures, or they have a picture at the top and then a couple of other finished product pictures that you can tell are not the same thing as the one one at the beginning of the pattern. So one image that looks too good to be true is probably AI. One image that looks completely like a respectable thing but doesn't have images further down has some slightly different problems and connotations. I wonder whether patterns like that have ever been pattern tested, because you end up with multiples of photos when they are pattern tested. It also is a problem for crochet beginners who are making something and they need a visual, for the most part, of how to achieve each of those steps, and also the reassurance that what they've made so far tallies with the instructions that they're following. Recently I've seen a few instances of instructions that don't tally with the photographs, and this probably was the red flaggiest of red flags to me, because that shows me that the person who has written the pattern or edited it may not even have been the person who was taking the photographs, or possibly doesn't even have a very good fundamental understanding of crochet. The common mistake that I see is the instructions and the patterns, one of them showing a beginning with a magic circle and the other one showing a chained circle beginning. These are fundamentally really different things. For most yarns, if you want a closed circle, you've got to do the magic circle. So if the instructions are saying chain circle and the image is showing a magic circle, you're going to think that you've done something wrong when your circle's not closed and it doesn't look like the photograph. Illogically ordered instructions are another big issue. For me, I mostly make and design crochet toys, and there is a particular order to doing them that I like to follow. I always start with the head. I then make the body and the limbs, and then I add on the features. But I would find it quite stressful, and I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I don't like it when the pattern tells you, for example, how to make the ears before you've made anything else. I want to have the head finished before I make the ears, so that I know that I'm working to the right kind of scale. Grammatical errors and typos. Now, maybe this is a me thing. If you read through the pattern before you begin and you find the sentence construction jarring, it's probably not the right pattern for you. Poor visibility. Patterns that are constructed in such a way that it is hard to read the writing because that's a font or a colour or a size that doesn't work particularly well for you. Images that are kind of smooshed into the writing as well, we've all seen them. Anything with the actual structure of the pattern that makes it difficult to read is going to inhibit your ability to make the pattern, where you predominantly need to follow a diagrammatic chart. I understand on paper, and to the extent that I could explain to someone else, how to translate a pattern that's done in that things that look like lots of crosses and dots way. I understand on paper what they're trying to tell me, but can I follow them? No. Unless you are a person who really wants to learn how to follow these diagrams or is already confident in them, can I suggest just don't. Just do something else. A lack of contact information. I very strongly want anyone who is following one of my patterns to be able to produce the thing that I have set out to have them produce. I get a kick out of seeing the toys that people have made based on my patterns. And I also want them to have a nice and comfortable experience doing it. Therefore, you will always find contact information from me, whether it is how to get in touch through social media or the Lucy Kate Crochet email address, which is hello@lucycatecrochet.com. I think it's really important that people can get in touch. And yes, sometimes people will get in touch with you for reasons that can be a little bit frustrating. But as a pattern designer, when you put a pattern out there, I believe that it is really important for people to be able to ask questions if they need to, because sometimes things are complicated and sometimes I make mistakes. Sometimes I probably make some of the mistakes that I've called red flags within this video, and if you can get in touch with me and tell me about them, I can fix them, so they're not a problem for the next person. A lack of contact details, a lack of transparency, I think is a worry. Or you just have to accept that if something goes wrong, you might find it a bit harder to get a bit of help. Well, I hope that's helpful, and please tell me, what do you think are the real red flags in a crochet pattern? What instantly gives you the ick or frustrates you once you've started? Let's chat about it in the comments section below. And also, if you're still here, can I just say, because no one in real life, other than my mum, really understands what a big deal this is. Tony Lipsy commented under one of my videos. I know. I was completely overexcited and may have spent about 2 hours bouncing off the walls before I managed to coherently make a cool response. Except it wasn't very cool.